What's up, guys? It's me, Albus with ATG, coming at you today. We got a tutorial. This tutorial is going to be a how-to install a water block, an EK water block to an Evga GTX 1080 Ti. Now, this is the For the Win 3 edition variant. Rather, there's a few variants. Also the Founders Edition variant, but this is the For the Win 3. I'm going to be showing you guys how to install this water block. We're going to remove the air cooler, clean up the GPU, install some thermal pads, and then apply the water block. You're going to need a few tools, not many, just a Phillips head screwdriver, a small one to remove the GPU screws here, and you're going to need another Phillips head screwdriver to remove these even smaller screws. In addition to that, you're gonna need some scissors to cut up the thermal paste and some alcohol to remove the thermal paste from the GPU itself. Scissors for the thermal pads. But first, of course, we have to remove the air cooler. Now that it's pretty straightforward. It's not too complicated. I've installed several of these water blocks, EK, bits power. They're, for the most part, sort of the same because, of course, the PCB itself is all the same. The PCB is the same. They may have a few areas of where the air cooler may be installed, but this one in particular has 4 screws that hold the air cooler in place, and the rest on the back, which is would be standard where the actual PCB is, there's four more here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and of course these smaller screws, but I'll get to that in a minute. So these For the Win 3s have there's one screw here, there's one there, there's one here, kind of recessed under the cooler, and there's another one there. Now the angle that these were installed, I don't know what type of screwdriver that Evga used to install these, but they're not just a straight drive. You see, my screwdriver can't get in there. I'm going to have to, the way I did it was I had to come at an angle, something like kind of get an angle in there like this in order to get a nice firm hold on the screw, because just going straight down is not gonna, it won't reach. They're recessed under this shroud here. I mean, they can come off, but it's just kind of tricky in getting them off. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get some of them off. Once you got a nice, firm grip on it, try not to strip it, of course. But once you kind of untorque that first tighten, it should be fairly easy to come off. You can probably hear that screw head skipping. We don't want to strip it because we may need to reinstall them later. Just kind of take your time and you should be able to get them out. There's one there. See, there's no stripping, but we kind of have to come at them at an angle like this and then kind of untorque it, because we can't do the typical straight down, so we have to kind of work this kind of magic here. But it works. So that's one of them. Let's go ahead and get the other ones removed. Just make sure I got a nice It's kind of catchy to get that first turn, because it is the tightest one. I don't know how this shroud was installed from the factory, but that is a very awkward angle. Or I could maybe doing it. I mean, I may be doing it wrong, or maybe I wouldn't say wrong, the preferred way. But if it works, it's not stupid. So that's two of them. We want to take our time with these guys. We don't want to strip these screws, because, you know, obviously that wouldn't be good for reinstalling. It wouldn't be good for reinstalling the cooler at a later time if we want to take the blocks off, which I wouldn't do, because water cooling is life. That's three. The fourth one shouldn't be that hard, because there's like a corner cut on this one. Well, actually both of these, that one was kind of fairly easy to get to. It's the ones in the rear. This one I can get a better angle at it. It's the ones near the IO shield that are the hardest to remove, because I can't get a dead straight down angle on my screwdriver. That's number 4. This is a pound 0 Phillip head, by the way, if any guys were wondering. I have a small tool set of them. Whatever. So those are 4 screws for the cooler. Now the 4 that remain are these that are closest to the actual GPU. The GPU sits here. So once we undo these screws, there shouldn't be anything holding the PCB and the cooler together. That's 4. Now here comes the fun part. So now we got all 4 of them loose. It still feels pretty sturdy, but it's not. The only thing that's going to be holding the PCB and this cooler together are the thermal pads, in addition to the thermal paste. You can probably see the thermal pads down in there, but we're just gonna pretty much open the shell, kind of just pull it apart. It should come. You'll see it's prying itself apart. Just wiggle it through till we got some. Wiggle both sides till we know we got it loose. And it should be coming loose. I think we got it all the way. Well, let's see. Make sure. Oh, you know what? This shroud is recessed under here, so it may be kind of press up against the IO shield to kind of let it free. If you'll notice, it just barely makes its way under there. You can release this IO shield by releasing the screws, but it's a little more time consuming when you can just kind of firmly press up against it and you notice it just pops right out. But okay, there we go. Now we got freedom. There's nothing holding now. All there is to do now, if you notice it hasn't come all the way apart, is we need to release these 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 these connectors that are more than likely for the fans and the LEDs and stuff like that. But the GPU is actually free to move, so we know it's free and we can take it off. So we're gonna go ahead and start to remove these connectors. I just take a pair of needle nose pliers and just kind of grab hold of them and wiggle them up. I can show you guys what I'm doing here. I'm just taking the pliers and just wiggling them. We don't want to squeeze too hard. It wiggles, just wiggle it way out, wiggle its way out. There's another one here. Just grab them by the 2 ends. I grab them by the 2 ends. I don't prefer to. There's another one there. There's 1, 2, 3, and there's the 4th one here. I don't prefer to grab them widthwise. I usually grab them lengthwise. Do a side to side kind of business. There's 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I thought it was 4. Go ahead and set that back down. Let's get this last one out. Once again, just grab it by the 2 ends, wiggle it up, and there's our air cooler completely removed. Go ahead and set that off to the side. We won't be needing it. So now what we have left is EVGA's no messing around heat shield. I say no messing around because this thing is over engineered. The Strix variant of the 1080s had a kind of a heat shield that went around the RAM chips, and it connected, I believe, to the IO shield and kind of made like a passive heat sink type deal. But this thing here is covering the entire PCB. There's thermal pads, there's these little heat dissipating spike looking things we got going on. The RAM chips, of course, are under here, which are full contact. All of them are full contact to this complete heat shield. We got another heat pipe over here. I mean, it is a complete layer of armor, not armor, complete layer of heat shield. It's not a partial one like the Strix variant of last year, the 1080. But in order to get those removed, pretty simple. All we're going to do is just take our smaller, I don't know what number this is, take our smaller Phillip head. This is a really small, this is actually for a cell phone kit that I had, this one. But there's quite a few screws. There's 3 here, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, 10. There's one here which makes 11, and let's see, not this one. This is the IO shield. 11, 12, 13, 14. Looks like about 14, maybe 15. But we'll see. One of these connects to the IO shield. I mean, it may be this one. That may not need to be removed. But let's go ahead and start removing these. There's a bunch of them. Just take your time. No need to rush. This is exactly how it's done. We will not be removing the back plate. By the way, these EK full cover blocks are compatible with the factory back plate. I repeat, these EK water blocks are compatible with the factory back plate. Shout out to EK for doing that. A lot of people, they like their water blocks with their brand insignias and logos and things. And plus there's an RGB pad back there that lights up that EVGA logo, and a lot of people like to keep that, and they don't want to buy a backplate when they've already spent upwards of $700 for, or in some cases upwards of $500 or $600 for a premium card. But then again, they have to buy a new backplate with the Waterblock. I think it gives the consumers a better config options as far as how they're going to run their or configure their loop, the cards, because I usually buy the back plates. But since a lot of the card manufacturers they're including RGB with their back plates now, or black back plates that have logos or some pretty nice designs. A lot of the consumers, they want to keep them. They don't want to have to ditch them in order to water cool. So I know BizPower did it last year with their cards. They introduced, I'm not sure if any of them before that, but I only used BizPower one time, specifically for the reason of them being able to use the factory RGB backplates. So being able to retain them, once I realized I could retain them, I came flocking back to EK Waterblocks, because this, I don't want to have to lose this. And even if still that later, I can still remove it. There is a warranty sticker on here. For what reason, I don't know. I'm guessing that has something to do with the whole, I believe they have some power delivery issues on the 1080 series cards, but there is a screw under here. So usually I would use a heat gun to, and I'll just clean it up later. I would use a heat gun to heat that adhesive up and then just pull the sticker off entirely, because you're not going to be able to get to the screw without doing it. There is one screw under here. There is not another one. So I don't know if it's voiding the warranty. Usually it voids the warranty on most other card manufacturers. It's usually not EVGA that voids the warranty because of a water block, but this time around they decided to add a warranty seal. So bummer, but even still, applying a water block is not gonna introduce any imminent danger to the PCB. Let me just make sure I'm grabbing the right screws, because one of these is actually for the IO shield, and I do not want to remove the IO shield. I think it's that one. So let's steer clear of that one, which is this one here, and we should be fine with the rest being removed. This one here. Okay, that looks like all of them, so we should be all right to pry off this armor plate. I keep calling it an armor plate. It's not an armor plate. It is a heat dissipating. It come freely off depending on how hot the thermal pads have gotten. If they stay pretty cold, then it's going to be a little harder to get it off. Let's just start our pry business going on. Just find you an edge, one of the corners. I found this corner here. Just kind of raise up on it. It'll come off. Once we start removing it, you notice it's coming off. We just kind of work our way down. It may feel like it's not going to come off, but it'll come off. It's just, like I said, depending on how hot the VRMs have gotten, it may take a little longer. Looks like I may have forgotten that one. Looks like I may have forgotten one. This lonely straggler. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's one of them. Come on. Feels like I'm missing some. You know what? This may not be for the back plate. These 4 here, it feels like. I don't know when I just remove this screw. That's 4. Let's go with these 4 here. I was thinking that these 4 here were 4 since they were surrounding the GPU seat. That it may be for the maybe for the back plate, but they in fact are securing the shield as well. So these have to be removed. My bad. Because it feels harder than normal. Whoa. To remove. Okay, there it goes. I thought it felt kind of stiff. So now we got a free PCB. There's more of that. I mean, these guys really wasn't messing around with this heat shield. But we don't need it. So let's put that there on the old cooler. And now what we have left is a bare PCB. Let's go ahead and remove any remaining thermal pads because we won't be needing them. We have no use for this stuff. We're after this big silver thing, which is the GPU. I typically like to take some alcohol and remove all of this, so that way we have a better seat for the VRMs and everything else. So we're going to take our alcohol and apply it with the paper towel. Clean off this chip. We don't want to leave anything behind that's going to cause a surface imperfection or give us or compromise our seat once the block is mated. Let's clean all that mess off. This was actually not too bad of a paste job, a PJ, done by the EVGA, by the manufacturer. With the 900 series cars, it was just a mess. 1080s wasn't as bad as well. I know a lot of people with 7 series GPUs, we were so used to having to repaste all the time, but I would go on a limb as far as to say that repasting GPUs are not really a mandate now with the 10 series, even though they are more susceptible to heat as far as performance. Let's clean it off. Probably just take some and just go ahead and dab on the RAM chips. Make sure you don't leave any. You could clean up some of this residual oil that was left by the thermal pads, but it's not too big of a deal. So now we're going to go ahead and get our thermal pads supplied by EK Waterblocks in the kit that you'll receive. You're going to receive some thermal pads, some screws, which are used for installing the new backplate, and thermal paste, of course, some plugs for the actual terminal ports, and there's a pack of these screws that are used to secure the stock backplate to the water block. Of course, you got some instructions here, and the actual water block itself. Let's go ahead and get that out of the packaging. Put this. This is trash. We don't need that. All right. So we got our water block. We won't be needing it right now, but we will be needing it soon. Set that off to the side right there. Let's put this somewhere else. So the instructions, based on the instructions, we have 3 types of thermal pads. There's let's drop them here. You have these pads here. They're used for the memory ICs. So you'll notice they have the little slits in them to cut them out, and they are going to be applied to each individual RAM chip. And you also have this. Let's put them there. We'll have a complete hole strip here. It is the same as the thermal pad ICs, except it's not individually cut out, because it's going to be applied in one long strip right here. And then you have this thicker pad. This is actually a 1 millimeter thickness. It's one long strip. It's going to be applied here. A small portion of it also is going to be needed to apply to this set of chips here to cool those. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but let's start with the memory ICs, which take the longest to apply. Each memory chip receives its own thermal pad. You could just get, let's make sure I'm making the right one. You could just get a strip and just lay it across the top. It's the same difference, as long as it's the correct thickness. I have a lot of thermal pads. Thermal pad. If you want to use any type of brand, you don't have to use the EK brand. There's other brands to use. I know Performance PCs, performance-pcs.com. Wow, this won't come off. Has a lot of thermal conductivity material, from paste to pads They've got it all. So in a perfect world, we could just pull these little blue things off the back, but since we don't live in a perfect world, it's taking me 30 minutes just to remove this one. Whoa. This is a tedious process, guys. This is exactly how it works. Anybody wants to know? No fluff. This is what you got to deal with. Very tedious process for a very expensive component. $779 these cards go for each, plus tax and shipping depending on where you live. So we don't want to we don't want to do a rush job and potentially, you know, risk overheating or burning out something because we did a rush job and didn't apply something as small as a thermal pad correctly. Come on. Or if we, you know, do the same thing with the chokes or the VRMs. There's 11 here because this is an 11 gigabyte card. But we should be finished in due time. It's not that hard, guys. If you read a few simple directions, EK Waterblocks, you know, they provide some pretty straightforward instructions. I've been using their Waterblocks for years. You know, EK products, you know, all their products come with detailed instructions with diagrams and pictures in reference to how this stuff, you know, their products are installed to components. So, I mean, if you just take your time to read through, always read over the instructions before I even attempt to alter a critical component such as a GPU or CPU. So that way you have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. I mean, if you're doing this kind of stuff in the first place, you know, you should have some sort of hands-on type of mindset. You know, because these components can get quite granular when it comes to their build, their construction. So taking them apart and putting them back together, you know, you got to have that mindset of being able to tinker with things, being a hands-on person. You know, with that mindset and some, you know, some good detailed instructions, I mean, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. It's not rocket science, even though it looks complicated. The hardest part actually that I found in my experience of installing Waterblocks is removing the rear covering of thermal pads. As you can see. Paste is easy. Unscrewing is easy, but these thermal pads will make or break a man. They are not supposed to be installed like this. There's two sides to this thermal pad. There's the side that comes with the transparent cover that just falls right off, and there's the side that does not have a sticky surface, and that side is what the actual contact on the water block is to mate with. The sticky side, you'll notice, is kind of sticking to my finger, but there's a side that won't stick to my finger. If I lay it, it'll fall off. But there's a sticky side, kind of like glue. That side is what mates with the IC, the VRM or the choke or whatever. I like to make sure that they all are flat as well once I lay them down so that there's no air, so that there is a complete and absolute mate to the surface. There's no bubbles. We don't want to have any air bubbles, and then you apply it and you got that one microscopic amount of surface that's not mating with the water block. And you know, you could run into issues, small issues, yes, but pennies make dollars. So those little variances in performance add up. Just get this last one. The last one is probably going to take the longest because it wants to be a star of the show and hold up the train. This is our last thermal pad. Again, we're going to make sure we got a flat surface. So we know that they're all going to mate. Next, we're going to have the same thickness. This is the same thickness, but it's not going to go in portions. It's going to just go one big slab straight down the middle. And I'll show you where that is to be applied. Let's get this one off. Come on, come on. Whoa. We got action. We got action. Come on, we got action. So we're going to take this one long strip here, and it's going to go right down this set of chokes. That's actually kind of even it out. You can trim it. That's fine as well. I could just apply it to where it kind of goes over both ends. But this actually is not gonna, it's still protruding, so let's go ahead and trim it off. Trim it off just at this end here. I know a few people are probably cringing at the fact that I touched the PCB with these scissors. Doesn't have to be pretty. Let's go ahead and make sure all these are mating. These chokes are mating with this thermal pad. Now I have a nice good seat. Now these, let's go ahead and do this one first. You'll notice this set of chips here, they need to be cooled. So let's get us a little piece, because this is the 1 millimeter thickness. This is not the 0.5 millimeter. These are 0.5s. This is a 1 millimeter thick. It has to be applied to these chips here and these here. So this looks like a nice, should be nice amounts of thickness here. For those. Let's get this one off. Just lay it right down, lay it right over it. Good seat. That should be perfect enough. Let's take the remaining strip and apply it. Man, I really hate removing this. This actually, what is this? Paper towel? It's a piece of paper towel from wiping it. let's just kind of tuck this under. Actually, since we cut it off, let's kind of give it a little tug to give it some a little bit more length. Probably would have been a good idea to apply that one first. So let's remove this one so we have a bit of viewing. They actually need to cover this row of chip and these here. So these and these. Looks good on that side. Just kind of iron it out with our fingers. Just press on these. So just a quick tip, guys. Since this one is not trimmed all the way correct, like tailored to these chokes, it'd probably be a good idea to apply the 1mm to these set of chips here first. This should be fine. This is actually the same thickness as the original. Maybe a tad thinner, but it won't hurt anything. So now we have all our thermal pads installed. Only thing left to do is to paste our GPU. Let's go ahead and get a drop in the middle. Now EK, per their instructions, they prefer that a kind of a star pattern is used. It's kind of a 8-point star kind of deal. I'll show you all. This 8-point star kind of deal is what EK prefers you use. Just a bunch of lines crossways in it like that. You can do that, but in my experience, now that these chips they're getting a little hotter, the amount of paste you apply will definitely have an impact on how much it runs over because of the heat. So if you use that pattern, I mean, it'll get a little messy. If you kind of do it that way, you might end up with a lot of paste that ran over, because I mean it's gonna get hot, and the hotter it is, the more viscous it becomes, and it'll just, you end up with a big mess, and you may potentially compromise the cooling capabilities, or degrade the cooling capability of the Waterblock if you put too much, because that applying it in that specific pattern, it'll create a mess. So I just applied a little thin drop to the middle. A little thin drop is all you need, and just spread it out to all the corners, like, just edge to edge. Very, very thin. We want to make sure it's flat as well. Very, very thin, so we don't have any runoff. But the entire chip is in fact still covered. Let's get this. You can use a cotton swab or whatever you want to use. I use my finger. It's not going to hurt anything at all. It will be fine. Let's clean this paste off my finger before I continue. And that is that. That's how it's done. It works perfectly fine. I've applied the paste in this fashion so many times and times again. GPUs and CPUs applied all the same. It does not impact performance at all. Now there's always a wide there's just so many people that will argue with you until their face is blue that you should apply a rice grain, you should apply an X, you should spread it out, this is too much, that's not enough, whatever. We're not going to get into one of those arguments, but now what we're going to do is apply our actual water block. So we're going to take the block here. Where's the GPU? I'm upside down, so it looks like it may be this way. Okay. Let's take our GPU, and you can kind of see where the holes are going to line up. You'll also see where these capacitors over here are going to line up, and just lay it down. Really, you can rest it on this side first, line it up. You'll see the seats, the screw seats, like here, where they mate with the copper circles. Same difference on this side. I know it's correct because all of these screw seats are lined up directly onto the PCB. So I know it's laying on there perfectly fine. But it has to screw from the rear, from the back. So what I'm going to do is take what we have made it and flip it over. And I'm going to have to make the IO shield lean off of the table, because otherwise the block will just fall right off. Just gently move it. We still have contact. Should be fine. Kind of oily, we're going to clean it off. We're going to take the screws provided. There is a diagram because we are using a stock backplate. So we're going to use this diagram here to apply these screws provided by EK. We're not going to use the ones that we pulled out of the stock cooler. We have to use the ones provided by EK. And this is 2.2. This diagram is for using a stock backplate. All of these screws are not going to go in all of these holes. There's maybe one or two extras, if I'm not mistaken. All these screw holes are not going to be populated because they do not have threads for as many as the stock cooler has. So according to this, we got the left side. All right, let's go ahead and start popping these in. Let's get these out. That one's gonna work fine. The only stock screws that we're gonna use, all right, the only stock screws that we're gonna use are the 4 that we took out of the actual GPU seat, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Other than that, one of these are extra. Well, there's an extra that we're just gonna put them here. We'll get cross the bridge when we get there. We're gonna use the 4 that came with the stock cooler. These are the same. Let's pop these in. See, we got some lights kind of right in here. Whoops. Pop these in, and once we get these, want to make sure they're nice and tight. So we know we got a good seat. You know that GPU is getting a nice seat. Now it is preferred that you work your way outwards from the GPU, these four here. So we're going to either go this direction or this direction and work our way back or work our way forward. We don't want to jump way over here because we're kind of ironing our way forward when it comes to mating the block to the thermal pads. So there's one here. I can tell where the screws go because if you look down, you'll see a seat. You'll see a seat for a screw. A few of them are blank because this water block is not configured for screws in the same fashion that the stock cooler is. There's not one here. I can look at it and tell. Let's refer to this manual actual block. There's one. No, it's not one here either. There's one there. Working our way out. Here. Make sure we got them in there nice and tight. Just one here. One of these are going to require a nut, and it may be, let me just make sure I got a nice secure mate before I flip this block. Once we got enough screws in it, you can go ahead and take it off the edge, because we know now that we have the block being secured to the PCB with the screws, so we don't have to worry about it falling off. One of these, again, we're going to require, and this one here, require a nut. EK has provided them, of course. Plenty of extras in case you lose one. They always provide extra components in case there's an event that you may misplace or damage a screw or nut during the installation process. Come on out, there's a lot of them in here. Let's get this out of here. So we're going to take our screw, place it in there. It's going to go in and just take the nut. You guys can see this. Let me make sure. Just kind of hold the nut on this side while we're screwing in. Once you feel it making its way through, you can just allow them to, okay, I feel it, there it is. Right, kind of hold it in place. It should be fine. Just kind of hold it in place while it screws its way in. And once you know it's nice and tight, we can move on to the next screws. There's no hole there. There's one here left, and there left. And there. So we got 4 left to go. Let's go ahead and start on this side. Again, once we have all these secured, well, enough secured, we can move it off of the edge. So now the block's not gonna fall. There's one there. Actually, back up. Let's back it up. Here. Not too tight. We don't have to tighten it with the power of Thor. We're just gonna get a nice, firm a good amount of tension. There's one there. Again, all of these are not gonna use screws. They should have, you'll see the seats where they go, like this one here. Make sure we got a nice, good edge on them all. Looks like we got one there. Was that one? Well, that one is my one. As long as we don't have anything flapping around. There's not one. I'll put it in there anyways, but it'll be alright. And it looks like we got one here. And just double checking to make sure I got all of them. So we don't want to leave any of them behind. I'm gonna tighten this last one down. That should be all of them. Once we got them all in, it'll be end up like this. And there you have it. Water blocks all the way installed. Everything's nice and firm. Of course, you can remove the foil, protective foil. Got the terminal on this side, and that's all you have to it. GTX 1080 Ti water block install, EK water blocks. Make sure you all like and subscribe for more how-tos and tutorials and things like that. Head over to Computer Enthusiast Master Race Facebook group, of course. Join up. You can follow this build. Mostly it'll be on YouTube. And I'll see you guys in the next video.